In this lesson, we're going to look at dividing using synthetic substitution. You can use synthetic substitution in a few different ways, but for our purposes, we are going to be using synthetic division only when we have x plus a number or x minus a number for our divisor. How you get synthetic substitution set up is like this. Again, a few different textbooks do a few different things. This is a pretty common symbol. Another one that you'll see to structure synthetic division looks like that instead, but it's all pretty much the same thing. What you're dividing, we want to have that in standard form, and then we want to write down just the coefficients across the top, and if we're missing any, we do want to put in a 0. So we are dividing something here that is in standard form. The first term is a 3x to the fourth. Just going to use the coefficient, the 3 from that. Next we need the coefficient of the x cubed term, which is a -1. Next we need the coefficient of the x squared term, but there isn't one, so I'm going to put a 0 in that spot. And then our x term, and then our constant. Out in front, we want to put what we're dividing by. When you do synthetic division, you basically take your divisor, set it equal to 0, and then solve that for x. So if we subtract 2 on both sides, we would end up with x is equal to a -2. That -2 is what we put in the front. And then as you go through your process for synthetic division, it looks like this. Your first column, you have 3 with nothing underneath it, so that's like 3 plus nothing, so I'm going to write a 3 in the bottom. When you put that 3 in the bottom, you want to multiply that by the number in front. So 3 times -2 is -6, and that goes underneath the next number. This is a -6, so I'm going to be using subtraction with that. So it's -1 minus 6, which is a -7. As soon as you write a number in the bottom, you multiply by the number in front and put it in the next column. So -7 times -2 is 14. That's a positive number, so I'm going to handle that like addition. So 0 plus 14 is 14. 14 times -2 is -28. 5 minus 28 is a -23. -23 times -2 is a positive 46. And then -1 plus 46 is 45. Often books will put a vertical line in between these last two numbers. That is because this last number here is your remainder. And then all of the numbers in front, this is your quotient. And what those numbers represent are the coefficients in front of your x values. So our quotient is actually this. This last term here is a constant. The one in front is really an x, so this is a plus 14x. This is an x squared. This term in front, that would be our x cubed term. So we have a 3, x to the third, minus 7, x squared, plus 14x minus 23 for our quotient. That is what those numbers up above there represent. For your final answer, what we want to do is take the numbers off of this bottom line and write it in our final answer form. What we're going to do is the quotient plus the remainder divided by our divisor. So 3x cubed minus 7x squared plus 14x minus 23 plus a fraction. What goes in the top of the fraction is your remainder. And then what goes in the bottom of the fraction is your divisor. It's what we were dividing by, and the easiest place to see that is in the original problem. We were dividing by an x plus 2. So our final answer looks like that. Synthetic division can be used anytime you have x plus or x minus a number. And that number sometimes can be a fraction. So I'm going to do a letter B here with a fraction this time. We will do 3x squared plus 9x minus 2 divided by an x minus 1/3. So I'll set up my synthetic division. I'm not missing any terms this time, so I won't need any zeros in there. We have a 3x squared, and then our x term, and then our constant. And out in front we have x minus 1/3. If you set that equal to 0 and solve, you would get 1/3 for that value in the front. In your first step, 3 plus nothing is 3. Then 3 times 1/3 is 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. 10 times 1/3 is 10/3. And negative 2 plus 10/3, well, you'd want a common denominator there. So you'd want to think of this like a negative 6/3, and negative 6/3 plus 10/3 is 4/3. So that's what the synthetic division process would look like. This term here is a constant, the one in front of that is an x, so our final answer for our quotient is a 3x plus 10, and then we want plus our remainder, which happens to be 4/3 this time, over our divisor, which is an x minus 1/3. And that is what our final answer would look like.